Welcome to this week's podcast episode. I've brought on Benita. Ben, welcome.
Thank you, Heather. It's great to be here.
Give the listeners a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
I live in Virginia. I joke about a half hour to 2 hours from D.C., depending on traffic. I'm a real estate coach. I've been in real estate for a while. Got in, personal development probably 8 or 9 years ago. And over the last year or so, I've started helping other real estate agents I don't like the phrase life balance, but kind of keep things in check. I was meeting a lot of real estate agents who finally, make that 100K in commissions, and they turn around, their relationships have fallen apart, or the kids are growing up, or like, who's that fat guy in the mirror, looking back at me. So I kind of help them change their thinking and kind of show them what's possible and how you can make the money, but still keep your relationships with your family and friends and stay in shape as well too, which is important.
Yeah, it's kind of a cliche term, finding the balance, but how have you been able to do that?
Yeah, my big thing, and I don't want to here for 20 minutes. It's literally just it's changing your thinking, and it's more creating an awareness. Again, a lot of people, I've been in real estate for a long time, so that's kind of why I've been focusing on them. But entrepreneurs, busy moms, busy dads, you just get wrapped up in life. Got to take the kids here. I got this, I got that, and they never kind of stop and think, about themselves. I joke that literally, sadly, we all read the directions for new iPhones or how to cook something or how to go somewhere, but we never read directions for our own lives. And the only time people really think about that sort of stuff, December 31st, we all make New Year's resolutions, and for most of us, maybe a few days before, a few days after, January 1 is the only time we really think about ourselves. And hey, I'd like to lose a few pounds, or I'd like to reconnect with my spouse, or do this with my kids, or talk to some friends, or reconnect with people. And I help people. There's a bunch of ways. I help people again be more aware of that than just a few days a year.
Well, did you have a life experience or something that kind of was an awakening for you?
Wow, yeah, I had a couple of them. The big thing for me, I got wiped out years ago. I ended up in bankruptcy when the real estate market turned. Got divorced. Somebody just asked me this like 6 or 7 years ago. And the big thing, I guess, that really helped me was sort of the motivational, inspirational videos. I've gone through some ups and downs personally, but again, finding the videos, finding coaches like yourself, again, just to kind of help me change my thinking. Was just a game changer for me. The thing I know we kind of touched on, I call them expanders. That can be people, places, events, that kind of expand your thinking and say, hey, this guy did this, or this girl did this, and I'm not this guy was homeless and he became a big success, or this guy's parents, were split up, or he had a real rough childhood, and he or she was successful. And again, I call them expanders. When you meet these kind of people, and I think we all do, all of a sudden, making that $100,000 a year becomes possible. All of a sudden, I told you I've done some Ironman races. All of a sudden, finishing a big Ironman race or a marathon, or having that great relationship, suddenly becomes possible. And I think a lot of people meet these expanders. A lot of them dismiss them, but when they really spend time to look into their stories, again, it's a game changer. And I just love it. I'm just so hooked on it. And the neat thing about it is once you meet these people, listen to their stories, your mind never goes back. Once I don't know, if say you've never done a marathon, if I show you how possible it is to run a marathon, all of a sudden, your mind kind of gets stuck there. Well, darn, if he did it, then I really can do it. And it's just it's been fascinating for me how that works, and how, again, it's just totally changed my life.
Well, and you shared about these expanders, which I love that term. I've really never heard that. But how did you get started into doing Ironmans?
Yeah, the first, actually, I'm definitely going to tell them about this, Joel and Michelle McClintock. I was a speaker. I met them on a cruise. It was a short sail, the real estate cruise. They're a couple in their 50s, and I've always exercised. Admittedly, when I was younger, I exercised to try and impress the women. I'd heard of an Ironman triathlon. It's a 2.4 mile swim. It's followed by a 112 mile bike ride, and then you do a marathon. It's back to back to back. You have 17 hours to finish it. And again, when I first heard of that, I definitely never swam much. I definitely never rode a bike far. I never jogged more than maybe 2 or 3 miles. I mean, I always thought you have this thought of, hey, whoever does that, it's got to be somebody in their early 20s, I'm guessing, six pack, fantastic shape, never has a beer, never has a glass of wine, no pizza, no donuts. And I'm like, God bless you, good for you. That's badass. Knock yourselves out. But I have no interest in that. And I met these are the first two I guess I kind of would definitely call expanders. But again, they're a little bit older than me. Definitely look like they were in good shape, but not the 20-somethings that I just pictured you had to be to do these Ironman races. They told me they'd done a couple of them, and again, in talking to them, all of a sudden, wow, I was like, maybe this is possible. Went home, I started looking up the Ironman races. I actually spoken to him a couple of times on the phone. There's a gentleman named Hector Picard, lost his arms. He's finished an Ironman race. There's several people that were 300 or 400 pounds. They started exercising, got in shape. They'd finished an Ironman race. So all of a sudden, I was like, damn, Ben, maybe if you, got committed, you can do it. If these people can do it, just really a matter of commitment and getting your mind right. And I signed up for a couple of the shorter races and eventually signed up for one of those, the full Ironman's 140.6 mile race. Did it. And again, like I said, it's just, I would encourage anybody and everybody here at least once in your life, if it's not an Ironman race. I prefer the Ironman races because I think they're just awesome. They definitely get this done. But at least once in your life, you have to do something that you never thought you could do. And once you do something like that, your mind's never the same. You never go back to the way you were. And it's just, again, it's just crazy. When I speak, I compare it to sex and skydiving. You can't put into words, what those things feel like. When you do an Ironman race or your first marathon, it's just surreal, the feeling you have and the way it changes everything in your life. It changes your entire way of thinking about life, business, relationships, work, and it's, I can't explain it enough. And like I said, like sex and skydiving, you can't put it into words. It's just, it's something that you really need to try.
Yeah. Well, and you touched on several important aspects there. And so I want to backtrack a little bit, but one, and we've talked previously, I intend to do a half Ironman in 2020, and I learned by doing. So physical, especially endurance sports, even Tough Mudders and things like that, to push myself further than I thought that I could go physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. I have just soared into next levels of thinking. And so you started out with the thought, maybe this is possible. So what do you think clicked for you that was like, okay, maybe Ironmans aren't just for 20 somethings or super fit people. I'm going to do this. Like, how do you even commit to that?
Yeah, it's one of the, I don't like the word secret because I don't think there are any secrets to success. But one of the keys, I think, was finding other people that are doing it. There's, especially now with Facebook, you can get on my first triathlon group or my first marathon group or whatever it is. When you can find people that are going through the same things that you are, that's where I guess I found my encouragement. And that's neat. But for me, the personal thing is, again, but before I got into those, I'd never done a 5K. Like I jogged maybe a mile or two, and I was like, this is boring. I don't want to do this. But there's such a sense of accomplishment that, again, well, because you've done some training, you can't put it in the words. The first time you run 5 miles, you put your shoes on, you're like, oh my God, I hope I don't die. You finish your 5 miles, you're like, holy hell, I did it. And then it's immediately, I wonder if I could have gone 6 miles. I wonder if I could do 10 miles. Yeah. And once you hit those personal goals, it's like, I wonder if I could do a marathon. And you adjust your training, you do a little more, you surround yourself with the people. And again, I actually just started writing a blog this morning about why it's good to be an addict, not to drugs, but to the good stuff. And it's so addicting. It sounds like you're finding that out too. Once you do those improvements, I try to get up and exercise in the morning because I found, when I get it done in the morning, if I have a really good run or if I run a little faster, a little farther than I did, one of the things I love about it, that feeling lasts all day. No matter what happens the rest of the day, I got the workout in and I kicked butt in the morning. And it's just that little sense of accomplishment. And it transfers over into everything. Hey, I can make a few extra phone calls for work. I can send an extra text to a friend. I'm single, but I can send an extra text to my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whatever you're doing. And again, it's just those little things that really translate from, I did it with exercise. Now I can apply it to my relationships, to my business, to whatever else you're working on. And one of my favorite quotes, and it's so true, how you do anything is how you do everything. And
Yeah.
again, that little bump from the exercise is just so amazing. I know, like I said, like sex and skydiving, you can't put it into words. I think only people that have done it, have experienced it. Hey, I jogged my first mile without stopping, or I used to run a 15-minute mile, and I run a 10-minute mile or a 9-minute mile. It's such a rush. Just that self-improvement thing, like I said, has become so addicting. And again, something else I really like with the exercise is, that's always on you. It doesn't matter. My favorite point, doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter if you're black or white, rich or poor. You can get your butt up off the bed or the couch. You can do 10 push-ups, do 10 sit-ups, go for a walk, go for a jog. I mean, there's literally nothing stopping you from doing that except you or your will to do it. And again, it just becomes a way of life. And I just shocked. It shocks me, I said, the last few years, how it's been so applicable to, everything I do in life. I'm not a cheap plug, but I'm actually working on a book called Learning to Swim, Bike, and Run After Your Dreams. And it's how, just like we're talking about, how training for triathlons and exercising is so applicable to life. It's fascinating, just fascinates me.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know why. So what you brought up there, this time last year is when I barely just started running again, and 2 miles was difficult, right? And then I got to 4 miles, and I remember thinking about training for my marathon, like 20 miles, I couldn't even fathom.
Yeah. Yep.
And yesterday I went out for like an 8-mile jog, and it was no big deal. So it's just amazing how much growth you can. And it's literally just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you said, you're a perfect example. Imagine, if a year ago you're like, hey, Heather, you're going to wake up and run 8 miles this weekend. You'd be like, I'm like, who's going to do that? And then now it's still a bit of a challenge, but you can do it. And again, your mind's expanded. And once you see, if you do a couple 5Ks or see some other people doing it that are maybe a little older, maybe not as in good a shape, they're going 10, 15, 20 miles. It's like, well, you get a little bit competitive. It's like, well, wow, that guy can do it, or that girl can do it. I can go that extra mile. I can push a little harder, go a little faster. And I the same way we had a neat little story. Well, no, the first time I ever ran 10 miles, an old neighbor signed my wife and I at the time up for the Army 10 mile in DC. And I was like, I'd never done a 5K. I'm like, how the hell I can't go 10 miles? And I'll never forget when we were there, the couple that we were with, the girl there said, a lot of people do these Army 10 milers, these 10-mile runs as training races. And again, my thinking back then was, what the hell are you talking about? I'm just trying to finish. I'm like, a training race? What are you talking about? And now, because I've been doing it for a few years, I'll do 5, 10, 15 miles with a running group I'm in now, not batting an eye out of it. The first Army 10 miler, I was like training religiously. I was watching what I eat, the whole 9 yards. And now, so I was like, hey, Ben, let's go for a 10-mile run tomorrow. I wouldn't bat an eye, I'd get up. And it's just that, again, my mind's been expanded. I know I can do it. It's no longer I can never do 10 miles. And now it's like, oh, sure, I got that. Let me get some shoes and we'll go out and go. And again, it's just that thinking, again, applies, whether you're setting goals or, whatever it may be. It's just amazing how that little shift in your mind, when everything becomes possible, it's just, it's surreal. It changes your whole life. It changes my whole life.
Yeah. And I think it's important because I know so many people can't relate. They are not runners. They don't want to be runners, and that's fine. But I think the big message that you're sharing is the importance of just opening your mind. It's a small shift, knowing that whatever you desire is possible, and to surround yourself with like-minded people, find a mentor to get you from where you are to where you want to be.
Exactly. And I tell people, but it literally has nothing to do with the run or the finish line. It's who you become getting there. And that's so applicable for life. If you're trying to save up and get that car, get the house, or make that money, it's getting committed to, hey, I'm gonna get up in the morning, I'm gonna run the extra miles. Or if you're trying to get the car, hey, I'm gonna save up, I'm gonna do 2 or 3 side jobs, I'm gonna do X, do Y, do Z, and you finally get the car, and that's neat. When you stop and look back, just like you're gonna do after your first half Ironman, when you stop and look back, again, it impresses, you impress the hell out of yourself, and it does a world of good for your confidence. Like, hey, I can do this. I did a 70.3, Ironman. I swam, I biked, I ran, I did that. Heather, I just kicked ass and look at me go. And why can't I, make some more money or do more of this or do more of that? And again, it just does such wonders for your thinking. Like I said, you can't. can't put it into words. It's just surreal. And you say you find a good coach, or again, a running group, a triathlon group, whatever group, you surround yourself with people that are, on the same journey you're on. There'll be people a little farther along that have already done the stuff. You can learn from them. There'll be people that are, Heather, I've never done a 5K. How'd you get up to 8 miles? You're able to help them. It's just that whole energy, and you get around that. Again, it's applicable to, making the money, buying the car, starting the business, dating, whatever it is. It's funny when you kind of have that aha moment.
Yeah.
It just changes it.
So then question for you, since you've done a full Ironman, which blows my mind. What's next for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, I like to motivate and inspire more people to do the Ironman races, only because I'm going to be bugging you about it. Because of that feeling you get, once you do cross that line and you get the medal, it's like, damn it, look at me, I did this. Yeah. Physically for me, I've never run more than a marathon. I've looked at some of those. They have ultra marathon races. They're like, they have 50Ks, 50 milers, 100 milers. I like the idea of doing that, but I've talked to people, and again, it's a whole nother level of training and commitment. But again, I've become, over the last 5 or 6 years that I've been doing the Ironman races, there's such an amazing feeling when you do run a little faster or run a little farther. And so I don't have it on the books yet, but my ultimate goal, there's a guy I know did a race called the Badwater. It's the Badwater endurance race. It's 135 miles out in Death Valley. It's supposed to be one of the hardest races on the planet. You have a couple of days to finish, but that's the ultimate goal. But I just, anything. I mean, if you were, hey Ben, let's do this, or let's go here, I'm all in. I just love trying new things and growing and expanding, and you're trying to go a little farther. It's just such a great thing. It gets me all fired up.
That's awesome. Well, then question for you, what is like the number one key takeaway you want listeners to get from this conversation?
My number one thing would be, for everybody, at least once in your life, promise me that you're going to do something outside of your comfort zone. One thing that you don't think you can do, whether it's make 50 phone calls in a day for work, or you always wanted to look into starting a pizza business. Look into that, do that, go for it. Because again, once you do that, your mind's never the same. It does expand. It literally never goes back. And it's just you've done your 8 miles, you're going to have your 70.3 under your belt. Again, once you do that, it's just surreal. And at least everybody who listens, promise yourself at least once in your life you're going to go for it. You can try and do it just to see what you're really made of, and you'll be so happy you did. I promise you that.
Yes, for sure. Okay, then I have a few rapid fire questions I'd like to ask you to wrap up this interview, and the first one being, what is a quote or motto that you live by?
A quote. One of my favorite ones. This is a good one. One of my favorite ones is probably, you can't always change the people around you, but you can always change the people around you. Meaning, you can't always, if you're trying to inspire and motivate people, some people you can't. Some people are just kind of stuck in their ways, and I guess it's maybe another good quote. Sometimes you have to give up on people, not because you don't care, but because they don't care. Just it's so important to be around the good, positive people. If they're not there, your life's going to be real tough.
Yeah, for sure.
That's definitely one of my favorites.
There's that saying, or I think it's a book, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose wisely.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, exactly. I first heard that same time. I would call that quote an expander. It's one of the truest things I've ever seen or read. And it's, like you said, you hang around five people doing an Ironman or train for an Ironman, you want to get your butt up and go have a good time. And if your 5 friends are going out for beer and pizza every night, you're probably going to be a little overweight. If you're not yet, you eventually will be. And it's amazing how that energy and that surrounding yourself, that's one of the best things. Definitely another favorite quote of mine for sure.
Yes. Okay,
sure.
Second question, what is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Ooh, one that you don't hear much about, also by, everybody knows Napoleon Hill wrote that Think and Grow Rich. He has another book out called Outwitting the Devil. Again, by Napoleon Hill, same Think and Grow Rich. Have you read that one?
Yes, and you're right. It's kind of a hidden gem, but that's an expander if you ask me.
Yes, it was, yeah, for me, that was eye opening. And it's one of the bases that you gotta do some coaching that I don't think there's anything more important. You're to call The Secret and all that other stuff. But yeah, I mean, that book kind of identifies, what you can do when your mind drifts when you're working. The next thing you know, you're on Facebook for an hour, or YouTube for an hour, video games, or you're, watching TV or something. When you, can control your thinking, when you have that awareness, game changer. That was probably my second. The one I'd absolutely recommend, even before that, Jack Canfield has a book called The Success Principles. Mm-hmm. That's got a ton of good stuff. That one and Outwitting the Devil are my two. I would say they're my two most dog-eared books. I got all kinds of. They're all marked up, but those are fantastic. Outwitting the Devil is the one I read most recently. I still thumb through that at least 2 or 3 times a week just to kind of keep my mind fresh.
Yeah, I have to go back to that one. Okay, so final question for you. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, man, that's one of my favorites. I have I see that meme sometimes, like people they'll put a bench. It's one of my favorite answers. Like people put a bench, you see it up on Facebook and stuff. Like if you could have one conversation with somebody, any point in history, who would it be? And I always say, oof, I cry talking about this. I always say my 10-year-old self, wow. And just tell them that you're gonna face a lot of shit in your life, but it's all there for a reason, and you have to trust that. Because I've been through bankruptcy, divorce, some trials and tough stuff. And when you realize, instead of getting depressed and upset about it, like I'm doing, when you think that's all happening for a reason, and for me, yeah, I would tell my 10-year-old self that, hey, you're going to take some punches, but it's there to not only help you as a person, but more importantly, help you help other people. Yeah. And that's one of the things I think we go through some stuff. So I've been bankrupt and divorced, and when I can turn around and help somebody facing those same challenges, I don't want to say it was necessarily worth it because those were tough times, but being able to help somebody get through that, oh man, it's surreal. I mean, kind of comfort them, say, hey Ben, thanks for talking to help me get through this or whatever it is. It's fantastic. I would, tell my 10-year-old self, have fun along the way. You're going to go through some stuff, but don't threat it's only going to make you stronger as a person, and keep fighting. And don't, even more importantly, don't put off the hard work. I actually, unfortunately, still do that sometimes to this day. You just don't feel like getting up or making the phone calls, but so the sooner you put in the work and you kind of kick ass, and the sooner you see results and have a fantastic life. That's just how it all works.
Yeah. And on that note, one of the lines I love, I've heard it always from Tony Robbins, but it's that life is happening for you, not to you. So even though you had to go through those things and everybody else is going through their own thing, it's for you. It's not to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've heard that as well. And it's the same thing. It's something I would definitely lump into the expanders category. It changes your thinking when you no matter what it is, hey, this is happening for me, not to me. You may not understand. Steve Jobs had that quote. You may not understand why it's happening at the time, but at some point, it could be a week, a month, a year, even 3 or 4 years later, at some point in your life, you're going to be able to look back and say, that did happen for me. I was able to grow here or learn here's what I don't want in a relationship, what I don't want in business, or whatever it is. And shift your thinking. It's just amazing. It's good stuff.
Yes. Ben, I so appreciate you sharing your story and joining me for today's episode.
Thank you very much. It's been great. Good luck on your 70.3. I'm going to harass you about that. I don't want to see you do that.
For sure.